Magdaleno. Like I'll be with him on his team,
Mm-hmm.
learning from such an innovative person who's been in this field doing these design sprints for a very long time. This is going to be an amazing opportunity for me to improve my skills.
So you mentioned,
and on the second global virtual design sprint, I worked with Rakesh. I learned from a lot of amazing people also. You remember Rakesh?
yeah.
Worked with Sabrina, David Hall. So it's an amazing opportunity for learning.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward for working with David.
David, I had dinner with back in Boulder, and he's one of those folks that comes from the world of finance. So he uses the Lightning Decision Jam process, like you were talking about with templates and leveraging those. He's basically used that as a way of starting a meaningful conversation with his clientele around how that decision-making process can kind of move things along very fast. But again, how you actually apply that depends on the person you're talking to.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's another impression of another individual, and they get an understanding of who you are. So yeah, I knew that if Magdalena was at the front of it, it was going to be a very well normalized team where it's going to be about understanding, and then it's just going to need a composite where someone's going to have to drive and execute or move things along. So if it has that tension there, it should be a really good team.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm really, really looking forward to it. Now we just need to pick a challenge.
It'll get there. That's all this week. So once we vet that out, I think we'll be in good shape. So the 2-hour sprint that you had mentioned real briefly, kind of get into that a little bit in terms of like what you've been kind of exploring with that.
Well, okay. So what we do is process automation, right? And most of the work that we do is taking really menial tasks and make and then design a process or a bot that can handle these tasks more efficiently, faster, better, and save time and money. That is the main thing that we do. But we want to use design sprints and we want to use design thinking workshops to sell our process. So I want to be able to engage our potential clients, for example, with, let's say, something that I inspired from a Lightning Decision Jam, to show them the problems so that we can together work on uncovering the problems that they have or might be having, and then see how we can move from there, how we can help them improve their process. So, for example, we start like a regular Lightning Decision Jam. We start with a workshop, what's working, start with a positive note, what are the things that are going well with the business. And then after that, I thought that drawing a simple customer journey map would help. So they would see, based on that, what's going well, what are the business needs, where are the pain points, and then give them some time to write down what they think are the pain points. What do you think so far? So once they all write down, we give them some time to write down the pain points and put them on the journey map. Then we give them time to vote on them. Once we decide what are the pain points, we use abstract laddering to get rid of really abstract ideas. Because sometimes someone would say, oh, innovation, oh, blah, blah, blah. Automation would help us. So yeah, pain points, vote on the top pain points, and then we take the solid business needs and we vote on what they think are we take the biggest problems, and then we do how might we reframe those problems as challenges, like a regular Lightning Decision Jam.
So since you, excuse me, since you kind of come from a dev and a design background, I mean, you're very heavy in dev. We both know webflow. You know webflow probably better than I do.
I do. Well, maybe.
Well, I think you do. I'll assume you do because I haven't played with it in a while. But when I get in there, I just get lost in like kind of creating and figuring out what happens. Since you come from that disposition, I sense that more often than not, people that come from a dev design background are a bit more grounded in terms of the practicality of the solution or where things can go. With your exposure and your work in BP3 Global, do you find, and are you kind of walking more towards those business conversations? Is it a learning curve for you where you feel like it's something where you want to play more in and be able to talk to people about their pain points and what matters to them? Do you find that you just need to do the design sprint reps to really figure out where you want to play in this space?
No, I've noticed from working with enterprise clients that they usually don't know what the main problem that they're having or where the main problem that they're having is. So uncovering or framing the problem is, I've noticed, is very important before going into a design sprint. Otherwise, the design sprint could be a waste of time because we don't know what the problem that we're dealing with.
Yeah. So you really have to deduce if a design sprint is the right path to take.
Exactly.
Like
so I thought with my slightly adjusted lightning decision jam, after we ideate on solutions, then prioritize those solutions, and using the impact effort scale, then maybe we can decide better whether this solution might require a design sprint or not.
Do you think, and I'm asking for your opinion in particular, do you think that the future of anything related, design sprint related, is just customization? Is it really come down to taking the understanding or the practice of the design sprint process and customizing it for, say, your situations to the point where it's not really a design sprint anymore? It's a collection of different methods to try to get to an answer.
Interesting, because one of the sessions that I attended at SprintCon this year was the Enterprise Design Sprints with Tomomi and Milan. And that was exactly what the session was about, was customizing the sprint process, that it doesn't even look like the sprint in the book anymore, so it would fit the enterprise customer needs. They had engagement. We talked about engagement sprints, for example, that could have up to 35 participants in the sprint, but they're all involved to finding in the sprint activities, for example. Then there's strategy sprints, experimentation sprints, realization sprints that they had. It was very interesting. I didn't get the chance to read the deck that they provided afterwards, but it's really something that I want to look into and see how we can utilize those solutions into our process.
The final stage is when they stopped and when they finally dropped the word sprint. Because right now it's the lexicon. It's like the language and the label that people use, because that it has a tie back into the book. It's easily identifiable, so it's generational. But I think that once the sprint moniker gets dropped, then it starts getting interesting. Then it's really, goes back to what makes this workshop not a workshop or different from anything else.
Yeah.
How does it get back to being like relating with humans and things like that?
Some people already started dropping the word sprint or even design sprint from the whole process. Like Douglas Ferguson calls it innovation workshops, for example.
Yeah.
Because it's customized in a way that it doesn't even resemble the design sprint from the book anymore.
Yeah, I kind of think I get a feeling that's where it's going.
And also the word innovation workshop sells better, I think.
Well, for people that definitely want to be able to sell it to other people that they know, especially if it's a power game at the upper echelons where they have to impress upon a board or someplace else, then those kinds of that kind of nomenclature kind of rides in that area. I mean, just look at anything that McKinsey sells. All of that stuff is like littered with that kind of language.
Yeah.
Where it goes. And it's curated in such a way so that it's supposed to instill confidence in what you do, even if it's a modified design sprint and just has something a little bit different.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Yeah. So eventually people will have to maybe drop the words design sprint all completely and just call it, I don't know, accelerated innovation workshop or something like that.
And play with me a little bit here. I've always thought, and this is like the thesis back about a year ago, that if you did it right, you could actually create a a very lightweight prototype that used production level code with testing scripts that would be at like the beginnings of sprint 0 in a Scrum process, but it would literally allow development to ride in the same bus as everyone else. And maybe it's not just for a full week, but it could be like an extended week and a half with testing going into the second week, where if it's a prototype that really goes well, dev has the chance to kind of build the underlying foundations of what they need. They make sure that all the system ends and the data kind of fit together, and that it's well aligned to the point where you can execute on a very small area of a feature, or at least a product, but you get a real sense of whether or not it's going to perform speed-wise, resource-wise, how much maintenance it's going to be, especially in an enterprise environment. Do you think that reality will ever come to be, or is it going to take a new method to that combines maybe agile and Scrum and lean and design sprints, and somebody to basically formulate it so that it's easy to understand and it can go somewhere?
I wish someone would actually do that, because that's something that in BP3 we are experimenting with right now. So one of the things that we do after the design sprint is help the product owners of the company or the organization we worked for write the user stories, so they would prioritize them and put them into their backlog for execution, for example. So that process, if someone would actually find a way to integrate the design sprint into quarterly sprints, or every quarter a new design sprint, so we can get to new ideas, new features, and then integrate those ideas and features into the backlog as user stories and work on them, then that would be great. That was one thing that I probably would want to work on. I've been toying with the idea for a while.
What do you think of the 6-week cycle that's been used at Spotify and with I'm forgetting the name, 37 Signals? Have you heard of that?
I'm not familiar of it. No, I don't know.
There's a whole web book that Jason Fried came out with about a month ago.
Shape Up.
Yeah, that was it.
Yes, Shape Up. Okay. I like it a lot. That kind of takes some design thinking and integrates it into the Scrum process. Since, for example, they vote on what to work on all together. They sketch together the solutions. They work on voting the user stories they're going to work on, and throw away all the other user stories because they might not matter after 6 weeks. So yeah, I like it a lot, actually.
I really like the whole, because Jason tends to be very counterculture, so that appeals to me as like a very old rebel now. But I do, but it doesn't come without having a really strong point of view that makes sense. One of the things with that process that really sung to me was getting out of the business of developers being ticket takers, where they basically just take something off the stack and they basically work on that, and they're micro-focused on something without looking at the holistic picture and dehumanizing the developer or the design developer as a process, and really getting back to having conversations about the work and framing it in such a way so that you're really thinking about how it's going to work and formatted. I think there's a little bit of hubris that goes along with 37 Signals that kind of shields them from certain realities. But the question is how do you take that point of view and transmute it into enterprise, transmute it into startups?
Right.
Take what Spotify's done with their example, and how do you take that experimentation they do and put it into a company that's willing to kind of play with it and see where it goes?
Right. So when I was starting my career as a product manager, a lot of the decision making was coming down to one person, which is me as a product manager. So at some point I started feeling bad about this because, well, I just wanted my developers to do the user stories that I would give them without questioning me. And that after a while, that didn't feel right because I have a very capable team. I have a very capable developers that are paid a lot. And we are basically all using the same product. So we get inspiration from the same products. So why not work all together on potentially improving the product? So that is one of the things that I think they are doing, and they are doing very well.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of Scrum teams should learn from that because I've worked with some Scrum teams who focus only on the rituals. Oh, we're doing stand up now, but they don't focus on the core of the Agile process, which is the cooperation, the communication, and all the other important core principles.
Mm. I was interested in kind of integrating the 6-week cycle with the GVDS, but I thought that was a little too heavy with everything I was trying to put into it between this and the training, like the virtual sprint training I'm restarting it again this week, and just the design sprint in general. I thought, I've heard many different people say, well, where do you go from there once the design sprint is done and you've done this work? Do the teams just kind of usually fall back and do what they want? And that's usually the case. But
Yeah.
what if you gave it a container like the 6-week platform where it's casual, it's on your own time, you still keep the camaraderie within the team, they still live their lives with their full-time jobs, but this is extremely passive. But you build something that's intriguing for everyone, and then it still follows in that same vein of being something in their portfolio, something that they can showcase as part of what they do. It's kind of like an establishment of a hobby in a way, but and I say this because I think you saw this also with Lee Duncan. He is going to Austria and accepting a silver, I think it was a silver award for their blockchain for what they had done. That the inception of that, from my understanding, is the first pilot of the design sprint, or the Global Virtual Design Sprint, what he did there with Bill and David Magliano and a few others that I'm forgetting. But what if that 6-week cycle, at least to see where it goes, provides the proper platform to kind of take things to the next stage, and then anybody that's involved with it can adopt it for their own purposes, similar to what you're talking about with the templates.
This is a fantastic idea, and I think that should be the future of working, or at least this is a better idea and a better way of working than the status quo right now. One of the things that we do at BP3 is after the design sprint is over, we try and maintain the momentum, and we try to work with the product owners of the organization that we are working with and try and help them turning the prototype into prioritized user stories that they add into their backlog. And then we try and help them as well, voting those prioritized user stories into the development sprint. And you're right, because if we leave them to it, they might completely forget about it after a while, and then after a couple of months, it's probably irrelevant because the customer needs have changed.
Yes.
And so you need to immediately work on that design sprint and the outcome of the design sprint to integrate it into your development sprint.
It can be a combination of the 6-week cycle plus something that someone had sent me about doing testing the market early, where you do micro experiments. And there was I can't believe, I remember it was a Nobel Prize trio, or if it was, I think it was something different, where you take you experiment and you just literally put it in the wild, what you have, irregardless of where it is, and get people's impression of it and try to sell it. Like actually try to sell the product to someone and see if they would actually purchase it, because then you know if it has any real market value per se, like if it's a subscription model or if it's services, and just explain it to them and say, would you purchase this? And if they do, you know, then actually take the money and see what they do with it. Or if they don't, you know, see if they really kind of like go forward with it. Then you know you have something that the market may want. But if that's not your aim in terms of selling something, but it's more to move a conversation forward about something different, then the interchange or the sell is different. So it's more of, would you adopt this in your program? Like for education in high school or in junior high, and one of the challenges was design thinking. If we presented this, what's the process for bringing this into the curriculum, and who would we need to talk to kind of make it happen? Then you have a different flight plan, but you can see an end and see what kind of, where it could go, something like that.
Yeah, and most of the enterprise solutions or enterprise organizations that we work with, they work in 2 week sprints, and I don't think 2 week sprint is enough to produce something valuable. So 6 week sprints makes more sense to actually produce something that is valuable, that is that can be tested with the customer properly, instead of just producing every 2 weeks a tiny feature.
And plus, and I'll leave it at this, you may drop it altogether. It may be something where the momentum and the interest just kind of dies off, and the other things take precedence, and it just doesn't go anywhere. But if you find that it really has momentum, then it'll speak for itself, and people will continue to go at it. Like if they really sense that there's something there. Mm-hmm. So in a way, it's testing the market on both sides.
Yeah.
For those people that are on the live stream for the YouTube and those who have registered on Zoom, if you want to ask Amer some questions, now's the time to put them in. We'll probably take the last 20 minutes of our session to kind of field those questions and what you're curious to know about Amer. You could ask him a lot of different things. You could even ask him about his music tastes, but I'm not getting into that purposefully, Amer, because I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, because the both of us, being that I'm an old school DJ and that you have I would say an illustrious career in the music industry, which shall go unmentioned unless we get into that topic. Could be something that people can ask about.
I just hope people don't start Googling me.
Well, you know, there is a very, very popular method called metal mockups that I think would be something that would be worth searching. It is helpful in that it encourages people to listen to culturally relevant music while imbibing some very, I would say, inspirational, intoxicating adult beverages that could drive people to new heights of innovation. So I don't think it's all that bad, and it's not all that revealing, but we'll keep it on the down low and not get too far.
Well, I have a question for you. It's a very controversial issue for me.
Okay, go for it.
Global Virtual Design Sprint, is it GVDS or JVDS?
GVDS or JVDS? I guess it depends. I guess it depends on the region, especially how you say it. It'd be GVDS or JVDS.
I don't know. It sounded to me like a GIF thing.
Oh yeah, I see where you're going.
Because this is global.
Yeah.
But you said GVDS.
I said GVDS just because it's easier, and I'm homeschool Detroit, so I'm like, my consonants are very sudden and brief. If I would have moved like one state over in Wisconsin, all my vowels would have been ooh and a and Canadian, but just didn't happen for me.
Well, you know, you have to decide on which, because otherwise that will split the people in half.
I think I'm okay.
People revolting. I don't know. There are a lot of revolutions happening around the world. You don't want happening in the Global Virtual Design Sprint as well.
No, I think the only problem I would have is if GV Design Sprints comes knocking on my door and saying, we really like the logo and the acronym, but could you put, you know, it'll sound like somebody who sounds exactly like Jake Knapp going, you know, I think you probably should think of another way of putting your event in a way that's better marketed than what you're doing. We would like to give you some suggestions, maybe JDVS or GDVS, or maybe just dropping the global and just making it VDS. How do you like that? So that could potentially happen.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
What do you got coming up for yourself and what you're looking forward to professionally? Maybe you got some things planned in 2020. Are you doing some travel within the United States? I mean, what are some things that are coming up for you?
Well, one of the things I'm looking forward to is going to Miami, because we have a client in Miami and I might be running a sprint with them. So that would be nice. I'll probably rent a room by the beach and try and run the sprint from that room next to the beach. That would be awesome. But yeah, I've been thinking about getting into writing on Medium. That's something that you could help with probably. And I really want to work on this idea that we just talked about, the idea of integrating design sprints and design thinking properly into the Scrum process, or improving the Scrum process with activities from the design sprint. Maybe a step-by-step, even work on a step-by-step, but that's going to take some time because I'm going to have to work with a few clients and refine my process first. But that is something I really am interested in working on.
And I think the answer is going to come from developers. I don't think that's going to come from anywhere else. It has to come from people that live and work this stuff more than anything else, and not project or conceptualize it to the point where it doesn't make sense. I mean, not all developers are going to be like the same. They're not cookie cutters. They all come from all stripes, just like designers do. But people that are thinking about, you know, ways of being efficient, but being practical, dealing with the realities of deadlines, and trying to write code that isn't going to be tossed, or, you know, just kind of working within the system and seeing what makes sense, but kind of following.
Exactly. And since I'm working with developers right now, that actually would give me a very good idea on how to work with them properly and how to integrate design thinking into the Scrum process properly.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm really working on. I'm actually typing notes and started to work on it.
I think there's something there. It just feels like that's the next stage. I mean, Agile and Scrum have been along for so long, and there's been people that have kind of, like, there's Pivotal, who kind of pair up designers, developers, programmers, program managers, and account people. They have a team of 4 or 5, and they work closely together on everything. And they use all their in-house kind of SaaS software. They have all of their own like technology on the server side. They have all of this stuff that they do to kind of support everything. But it's the process that seems like it's just right for someone to kind of go, you know what? I think it could work like this. I experimented with it. Here are the results. You try it and see what happens, and see if something like that catches fire and where it goes.
I'm surprised that this didn't come, for example, from someone who's working at big organizations like Google or I don't know, Microsoft. Why is there no process like that yet?
Probably because and this is just my own personal opinion, when you're in those types of environments, usually good ideas tend to die. They don't, there's nothing really, there's no incentive on the person that creates them to kind of move them forward, because the company doesn't incentivize it. Amazon does encourage people to bring their ideas in front of a panel that kind of scrutinize it and tell whether or not it has potential, but it never really gives the person who created it the notion that it could go in a particular direction, because all the opinions that come in are second or third hand, and not the opinions of people that they're trying to do this for. So it could be where the results speak for themselves. So if you create something that is intriguing, different, can show that it seems to work in this environment, other people will adopt it and try it and figure it out. And it's really like the design sprint process. They wrote the book basically on being more efficient about design thinking, because he saw Jake was frustrated with what was going on within the company. He decided, well, I'll try to make it a little bit different. And he kept on iterating and trying it out. Well, who's to say that couldn't work with development as well?
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking. And that's what I'm working on. That's what I'm trying right now. And we'll see. I'll report again on the next interview for the next Global Virtual Design Sprint.
Are we making this a series? Is that what you're suggesting? Is that I just had, I'm going to check in with Amer to make sure that I'm grounded and I'm getting the best impression of innovation that's going around anywhere.
Hey, I might be in a different country as well, so you don't know.
Actually, what would be great is that every time you go to a different city, we do a different presentation. So the backdrop is not going to be virtual; it's going to be different. You're going to be, yeah, I'm in Miami on a beach. The wind's going to be blowing around across the microphone, so I can give you some updates on what's happening.
Hey, my cat has left me alone. Actually, that's good as well.
It's my voice. I tend to drive people away, even animals. So I can understand. So a couple questions that came in. Kim's asking 4 or 5 day design sprints. Is there a preference you have?
We actually do the 4-day design sprint, but we spread it over 5 days. So we have more time doing the activities that we need to do. We give ourselves more time. When working with people in the enterprise, they don't have the 8 hours a day that we need. So they tend to give us 5, maybe 6 hours a day. So we do the 4-day design sprint, but over 5 days.
Got it. Okay. She also had another question about, doesn't staying into the code or being concentrated on the code defeat the idea of staying quote unquote big picture and testing concepts, flow, etc.? And it's the same with designers, being order takers instead of integrated into the planning and ideation concept.
I didn't understand the question.
Okay, let's start with the first one. Doesn't getting it into the code defeat the idea of staying big picture and testing concepts and flow and so on? Like if you're very much into the details, can you not kind of elevate and think bigger picture, or do you need to start bigger picture and then go into the details?
Well, we start bigger picture definitely with the design sprint. Well, you start bigger picture and then you focus on a specific pain point and you start ideating solutions for that pain point. When we're done with that and the prototype works and the users are happy with the prototype, then that prototype doesn't really go immediately into the next development sprint. We still have to do some work to develop the user stories, requirements, the definition of done. There's still a lot of work to have a proper user story before it's in the development process. So that also might be a reason why maybe 6 weeks, doing a design sprint every 6 weeks might not work. We might need more time because the user stories that we get from one prototype could be bigger than 6 weeks actually.
Yeah. What if user stories were eliminated, and instead of user stories, you were talking about you were looking at recorded conversations with people that were interested in the product, and that you were inferring through conversation on where that could potentially go? Or are user stories so integrated into the habits of people that develop and do development that that's just part of the Scrum process and that's not going away?
It's part of the Scrum process. People are used to it. People like it, and that's why it's difficult to change it right now. But I agree with you. When you have an integrated small team, they might not even need user stories anymore. They have that prototype. They have, let's say, a roadmap, for lack of a different word for it. They would have an idea where they're going, and they will work together, communicate together to develop that idea that they have, or that roadmap that they have of the product.
Where are you going to be in 2020? Where would you like to be? If you and I are talking again in November, and granted that you've had some major events happen this year with moving over to America, starting a new position at BP3 Global, where would you like to be in all things being considered?
Well, I would like to be running the Miami chapter for the Google Design Sprint, since I was picked by Google to run a chapter. That's one. Maybe also I would like to grow. That's something I talked about with my partner at BP3, design partner, Andy. We want to grow our design team and our offering from 2 people only to maybe 4 or 5 by next year. So we want to offer more design thinking workshop and more design sprints for our client.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you believe in the philosophy that Gary Vaynerchuk and other people in marketing believe, where you have to put a lot of content out on social media for people to be aware of who you are and what you do?
Unfortunately, yes. Yes, you do. Yes. Okay. Because people, whenever they hear about, well, let's say they hear about design sprints and they start researching design sprints, if you don't have a lot of content out there, they're never going to find you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, unfortunately, yes, we do. So we are thinking about doing a lot of content as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you were to think of the cities beyond Miami that you would like to travel to and just kind of explore, are you thinking
road trip?
Yeah, that's where I'm going.
Yeah.
Would you want to canvas all of Texas? Would you want to go down south to Mexico? I mean, where would you want to take things?
Funny you mentioned Mexico. Yes, yes. Actually planning a trip to Mexico with my wife, maybe hopefully for the Christmas.
Oh, okay. Well, that would be
Yeah,
awesome if
but
you did that.
absolutely. And then yeah, we want to go everywhere in the US, definitely everywhere.
Okay. But anything in
For
particular?
work, maybe for work as well, but that's something also our sales team is looking into, finding clients all over the US for us, maybe even internationally.
Hmm.
So I would be doing, let's call them innovation workshops with different enterprise clients or potential clients all over the United States and maybe even in Europe.
Who are you learning from right now the most? Who are you following and kind of consuming content from, or from books, or from anything that where it's kind of feeding into your narrative, or really kind of I would say, what's the word? Because I have tired brain, it's not coming to me. It's not inspiring, but it's kind of moving you in a particular direction with your career.
All right. Douglas Ferguson is helping me a lot right now. I'm helping him run the Austin Design Sprint chapter. He actually will be traveling in December, so I will be running the Design Sprint meetup for him in December here in Austin. And he's helping me a lot. He's teaching me a lot. And we even go boxing from time to time.
Really?
Yeah. I like the stuff that Mural is doing with you, with Mark Tippin, with a lot of innovation stuff that they do. I'm learning a lot from that as well.
Okay.
And when it comes to um, other places that I follow, Envision blog and Envision videos also are very informative.
Okay. Damn, I'm running out of questions. I just want to talk to you about music now, but I don't. I know I don't. Because
It's
you're and
fine.
I.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
Well,
we might as well. So my music tastes are all across the board. What I find really interesting is whenever I see what you promote, it's like, okay, that's something where I would have to take like part of my time to really like view the artist, listen to the music, make parallels to what I know. So
before you continue, I really think we should test the idea that we talked about during the podcast last time with a music design sprint. For
oh,
anyone who, with the music, running the design sprint to write an album or write even a song, that is an idea that we should try, we should test.
it would.
But unfortunately, I'm not in a band anymore, so I can't test it.
True, but it because something you could write about, and that's what I remember. That's what I was going to tell you. So in December, we're doing another writing challenge again. So the thing I was doing back right after the design sprint that happened in April, we're going to do the exact same thing in May, where it's going to be not lessons per se, but it's the idea that you'd write a little bit every day in some fashion. So it could be Instagram, it could be Medium, it could be something else. But it starts getting you in the habit of putting your point of view out there and trying different things. And hell, I may include some of the writing lessons that I did for Mural and kind of put that out there for free and just say, you know, here's some potential things of where you can go with it.
Yeah, I guess we can try and do that. But also, before you started the Global Virtual Design Sprint, or the third version of the Global Virtual Design Sprint, remember you told me to prepare a surprise for you about my testimonial regarding the Global
Yes.
Virtual Design Sprint. Well, here it is.
Okay.
Guys, kids, wherever you are, if you're watching this,
Especially kids.
you want to transform your life, join the Global Virtual Design Sprint, and look at me. My life completely transformed. I was a Syrian refugee in Istanbul just last year, and then I joined the Global Virtual Design Sprint, and now I consult for Fortune 500 companies. It's only $50. You can take that from your mom. And if she doesn't give you, let her call me, and I will talk to her. I like talking to moms.
Yes. There you go. You could talk to them in multiple languages too, depending on if you want to communicate in different ways.
Well, you know, I tried.
Yeah,
But no,
and
seriously.
Kim even wrote, you can take that
Now
from me.
without joke. Let's get rid of the joke away.
Oh.
But seriously, my life transformed thanks to you, and thanks to the Global Virtual Design Sprint, and thanks to Jonathan Courtney from AJ and Smart. Seriously, both of you, I learned a lot from you guys, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you and for Jonathan Courtney. Seriously.
I really do appreciate that, but you know, one of the main reasons why we're helping you out and doing all this is that we really want you to do like one better than what we're doing. Someday, you basically you make your mark and do something that you really feel is genuine to what you're all about, and that's the most we can hope for. Really, is that you just
I really hope so, and I think I've already started working on that. But yeah, I definitely thank you, because the Global Virtual Design Sprint gave me this opportunity to learn from from amazing cast of people, and even now, I can call myself almost an expert in design sprints. Well, according to Google, I am. I'm still very excited that I'm going to be learning or working with David Magdaleno and Lee Duncan and a lot of amazing names in the design sprint community.
I will say
This
this
is an
also.
opportunity that seriously you provide to people, and it's amazing. And I can't thank you enough.
You're more than welcome, Amir. I'm glad I'm glad I can help out people. I will say this though. The opportunity for at least for your company and for yourself is to take this virtual example of getting people together and recasting it in a way that makes sense for kind of doing it there where you are. So you have the in-person, that's been established. That's what seems to make sense in terms of this. But there may be situations where virtual does make sense and you have a client that's kind of oriented towards that. Then you'll have this experience in your back pocket and you say, okay, we can kind of probably retrofit it and structure it in such a way so it's this. That's kind of the whole point, is that you can take this and say, here's where we can go with it. And you have the templates, the blueprint, you've gone through the motions, you know the deal, and you can just put it out there as part of the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I can see that transforming the way we work in the future, for sure.
Yeah,
Why not?
I kind of put my chips down on that one.
I can see it happening in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
With a tool like Mural, it's already amazing. It's already perfect.
Yeah, and we've been speculating on what the next step is with this and where it could potentially go.
Virtual reality.
That's one of it. I mean, Frisso up in that we were talking about was actually thinking about piloting something for BP for the number 4 one. I don't know how it's gonna do, but yeah, I've already started thinking about the next one, but I gotta keep my head in the game and just make sure I deliver on this, because this is important. This week and next week are critical for like things to kind of get set into motion and people start concentrating what they're doing. If I take my eye off the ball, then I'm doing a service for no one, and I'm just got to concentrate on stuff. So anyway, if you're looking to find out more about Amer, you definitely want to Google metal mockups and see what comes up out of that. And there's plenty of information there. You can find everything you need to know about Amer truthfully on LinkedIn. That's probably the primary place where he updates everything. If you're in the design sprint circles, you'll occasionally see a post from him here and there, but I think he's pretty busy with BP3 Global, and he will be for the GVDS. So I know that I'm going to be showcasing a lot of what the teams are doing based on where they're taking things. You'll probably be part of that conversation. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what you and Dave come up with and the rest of the team that you have coming up for the month of November. So again, the honor is all mine to talking with you, Amer. You know, I'm a big fan of yours. So let's see what comes out in November, and best and continued success with you over that company. And I just hope you have an amazing time here in the States and in Austin.
Me too. Thank you very much for this opportunity. This was a great conversation, and I'll say to Kim, Team Fuzzy Bunny.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, Amer, have yourself a good night, and I will talk to you later on. All right.
You too. Take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.